Rudo is an ugly, broke, and friendless boy who spends most of his time rummaging through trash in the rich part of town. One day, he notices a rich lady discard a trash bag with a perfectly good doll in it, and he wants it. So, he heads down to the trash collection site and sneaks into one of the garbage rooms to start looking for any valuables. However, he's a bit too sloppy with his approach, as he gets spotted by one of the guards. The people here take their trash very seriously, because the guard immediately runs in and draws his gun on Rudo. Only authorized personnel are allowed inside, and once he realizes Rudo is a trash raider, the guard sounds the alarm to call for reinforcements. Rudo doesn't plan on sticking around, so he jumps into the trash chute and climbs back up to escape. But the lockdown sequence has already been initiated, and just as he's about to get out, the front gate seals shut. The guards eventually catch up to Rudo, and as soon as they have a clear shot, they open fire without hesitation, just to keep him from looking through their trash. As the bullets head straight for him, Rudo moves so fast that he's able to dodge them point blank. The guards, unaware of his speed, genuinely intended to kill him. He slips through one of the open doors and runs into the loading area while the guards continue shooting. At one point, a bullet grazes his arm, but he still manages to scale the wall and escape the trash collection compound. The guard continues to chase him, but Rudo hides in the sewer system until the coast is clear. He doesn't understand why they're willing to go so far to stop him from going through trash when he isn't hurting anyone. Soon, word spreads and people all over the city hear about the recent trash raid. They're appalled at the idea of the dirty tribesfolk rummaging through their discarded belongings. In this city, people are divided into two sections: the city dwellers, who live in a clean and pristine part of town, and the tribesfolk, who live in the filthy part. The trash raid is a hot topic here as well, and everyone already suspects Rudo, especially since he's busy fixing up the junk he collected last night. A few moments later, Rudo is confronted by his friend Chiwa, who yells at him for going trash raiding again. The city folk are strict about trash management, so there's no telling what they'd do if they caught him. Rudo understands the risks, but he doesn't think it's fair that the rich constantly throw away perfectly usable items. Selling the fixed junk helps him cover his living expenses. Just then, a group of guys show up and start insulting Rudo unprovoked. They tell Chiwa she shouldn't hang around a loser like him. Rudo tries to stay calm, but they keep pushing his limits. One of them even knocks over the lantern he was fixing, saying no one would buy something touched by his filthy hands. They then call him the son of a homicidal maniac. That last comment strikes a nerve. The boys explain that these slums were originally created as a prison for criminals, and now, as the children of those criminals, everyone here must behave in hopes of being allowed to rejoin the city. But people like Rudo's father ruined that chance by going on a killing spree. This boy has been talking a lot of for someone within drop-kicking range. And that last statement officially crossed the line, so Rudo stares at him with a look that says he's about to snap. Rudo's glare is so filled with animosity that it scares them into realizing it would be a bad idea to keep messing with him, so they slowly walk away. Once they're gone, Rudo silently picks up the lantern they kicked over, being used to ridicule for no reason. To his surprise, Chiwa is still standing by his side. She tells him she believes he's a good person, and that's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to him, leaving him unsure how to react. Chiwa then notices the toy Rudo fixed and loves it. She's impressed. He found something so cute in the trash and restored it. The whole reason Rudo went after the doll was to give it to Chiwa as a present, so he's happy she likes it. Before he can explain it's a gift, Chiwa's mother shows up and tells her it's time to go home. Chiwa says goodbye to Rudo and leaves with her mother, leaving Rudo disappointed he missed his chance to confess. After that, Rudo heads home, but as soon as he steps inside, he finds Recto standing there with a wide smile. He had been spying on Rudo earlier and repeats his failed confession word for word. Rudo gets flustered and yells that spying on private moments isn't cool. But Recto changes the subject, wanting to talk about the trash raid stunt Rudo pulled last night. Recto admits they are poor, but not so poor that Rudo should risk his life searching for junk. Rudo insists it's not risky since he's never been caught before, but Recto points out he was spotted last night and nearly captured. He understands Rudo is trying to repay him for everything he's done, even though they're not related by blood. But to Recto, Rudo is his son and owes him nothing. Recto found him abandoned as a baby and took him in, always treating him as family. Just then, Recto notices the wound on Rudo's arm and asks if he got shot. Rudo tries to deny it, but it's obvious. Recto tells him to roll up his sleeve so he can treat it and change the bandages. Once done, he warns Rudo to stay away from the trash site, because next time, he might not be lucky enough to get away with just minor injuries. Rudo says he's fine. Compared to the wounds his biological father left him with, a scratch isn't a big deal. The mood shifts at the mention of Rudo's father. In this city, major crimes are punished with immediate death by being dropped into the pit. Rudo's father was executed this way, and Recto doesn't want the same fate for him. Rudo's hands have been pitch black for as long as he can remember, and he sometimes suffers crippling pain from them. People look at him with disgust, but Recto was different. He gave him gloves to help manage the pain, and Rudo has treasured them ever since. Recto then tells Rudo he'd better make a move on Chiwa soon, or someone else might. Rudo doesn't want to talk about it, but while they're bickering, a mysterious masked man is outside, staring at their house ominously. The next morning, Rudo practices smiling because Recto told him it would make him more approachable. After a few minutes, he decides he's just plain ugly, so smiling won't help. Still, he wants to give Chiwa the doll, so he heads to her house. On the way, he thinks about the pit, a massive trash dump where the city throws both its garbage and criminals deemed useless to society. Public executions happen often, and the slums were built on the city's edge to remind the tribesfolk that stepping out of line means being thrown in without question. When Chiwa shows up, she says it's awful how people are sent to the pit so often. She doesn't want that to happen to him. She understands he disagrees with how the rich waste perfectly good items, but if he keeps putting himself in danger, it's only a matter of time before he's caught. Rudo laughs, saying Recto told him the same thing last night. Chiwa responds that's probably because Recto loves him just as much as she does. Rudo keeps laughing until he realizes Chiwa just said she loves him. Chiwa, flustered, tries to explain she didn't mean it in a weird way. Sensing this is his best chance, Rudo holds out the doll and says he got it for her because he thought she'd like it. Chiwa is overjoyed and says she'll treasure it forever. This went far better than Rudo expected, so unsure how to react, he runs off before his ugly face makes Chiwa change her mind. Now that he has finally made progress, Rudo wants to go home and tell Recto all about it. However, as he turns a corner, he accidentally bumps into a group of guards from the inner city. They barely acknowledge his existence, walking past him like he's nothing but trash. Apostles showing up in the slums is never a good sign, but right now Rudo doesn't care. He just wants to brag to Recto about his love life. When he gets home and opens the door, to his absolute horror, he finds the masked man with a sword plunged into Recto's chest. The masked man pauses for a moment, surprised by Rudo's sudden appearance, then pushes the sword deeper. Refusing to let Recto die in front of him, Rudo charges at the man, but in less than a second he's slammed against the wall, barely able to move. The beating is so quick that Rudo doesn't even remember how it happened, and the masked man barely considers him a threat. Convinced Recto won't survive, the masked man gets up and begins walking away. Rudo yells at him to stop, but when that fails, he tries to gather his strength to chase after him. Just then, he hears Recto's voice. Helping him takes priority over revenge, so Rudo rushes to his side. He tries to assure him that he'll get help, but there's little to be done when you've got a sword in your chest. Recto grabs his shirt and tells him to get out as fast as he can. Before Rudo can understand why, he's suddenly shot in the back with a taser and pinned to the ground by city guards. They accuse him of murdering Recto. No matter how much Rudo tries to explain his innocence, they refuse to listen. One of them even punches him until he loses consciousness. When Rudo wakes up, he's tied to the execution stand, dangling over the pit, while an apostle condemns him for a crime he didn't commit. The people of the slums already disliked him, so many cheer for his execution. Rudo wonders how things turned out this way. He did nothing wrong, yet dozens of people want him dead. He scans the crowd, searching for someone who believes in him, and spots Chiwa. He calls out to her, insisting he didn't kill Recto and asking her to help find the real killer. But Chiwa cuts him off, saying she was a fool to believe someone like Rudo could be more than a filthy murderer. She declares she wants nothing to do with him ever again. Watching Chiwa walk away, Rudo realizes he's truly alone. Just before he's dropped into the pit, Rudo spots the man who killed Recto in the crowd, In that moment, he swears to kill that man and everyone who turned their backs on him. When Rudo next opens his eyes, he's lying in a pile of trash, reeking from head to toe. To his surprise, he's still alive. He always thought the pit was a death sentence. Looking around, he sees endless wastelands stretching as far as the eye can see. Then a loud rumble comes from behind. Turning around, Rudo sees a massive trash monster glaring at him. He runs, but the monster calls for backup, and within moments, 2 more appear. Rudo struggles to believe what he's seeing, since when could piles of trash come to life and attack? But the human skull on the ground makes it clear what will happen if he doesn't act fast. Suddenly, the trash beneath his feet gives way, and he falls to a lower level. The impact knocks the wind out of him, and the stench is worse than a moldy gym bag, making it hard to breathe. With nothing but trash in sight, there's nowhere safe to hide. Losing hope, Rudo thinks he's doomed no matter what. Then he remembers Recto's last words and refuses to die, before making them all pay. The people who looked down on him as trash, the cowards who watched as he was thrown into the pit, and above all, the man who killed Recto in cold blood. One of the trash monsters tries to sneak attack Rudo while he's mid-motion, but he's so filled with rage that he smashes the monster's head away with a metal pipe. Meanwhile, on a nearby trash pile, a man spots Rudo across the trash field and becomes curious about him. Rudo does his best to fight back, but the pipe barely damages the monster's trash bodies. He's swatted away and bounces across the ground multiple times. Eventually, he gets hold of a broken stop sign and hurls it at one of the monsters, managing to deal some real damage. Still, the toxic air makes it hard for him to keep fighting. The 2 trash monsters see him struggling to stand, so they charge at him together. Just before they reach him, Rudo grabs a sheet of metal and slices one of the monsters clean in half, causing a huge explosion of debris. He's relieved to have taken one down, but another, much larger trash monster spawns right in front of him. With no choice, Rudo runs for his life. The monster slams the ground, launching him through the air until he lands right in front of the man who had been watching him. Confused by the stranger's presence and still unable to breathe in the foul air, Rudo tries to gather himself. The man, without explanation, picks him up, kicks him across the ground, and then puts a gas mask on his face. At first, Rudo is angry, but once he realizes he can finally breathe, he becomes grateful. He thanks the man and starts asking questions: where they are, what the monsters are, and whether everywhere is like this. The mysterious man tells Rudo to shut up. When Rudo refuses and keeps demanding answers, the man finally snaps back. He explains that this is one of many toxic dumps created by people like Rudo, and he would have told him if he hadn't been so loud. But now, thanks to his yelling, they have to deal with more monsters. He calls them trash beasts, creatures made of garbage that can't be harmed with normal weapons and that react to sound. Energy begins flowing from the man's arms into the umbrella he's holding, transforming it before Rudo's eyes. As a trash monster attacks, the man uses the umbrella to shred it to pieces with ease. Rudo is stunned by the man's skill, but there are more monsters closing in. The man charges into battle, taking down over a dozen trash beasts in seconds. One of the beasts vomits a stream of foul purple sludge, which the man blocks with his umbrella before driving it straight through the creature's head. After the fight, he walks back over to Rudo, removes his mask, and introduces himself as Engine, a cleaner. He immediately regrets taking off the mask. The stench is unbearable. Moments later, Rudo collapses from exhaustion, his body still battered from earlier. While unconscious, Rudo recalls a childhood memory with Recto. When he was young, he came home covered in mud, and Recto asked what happened. Rudo explained that some kids had pushed him into the dirt. All he did was tell them that objects are alive because if you take care of them for long enough, a soul will come and live in them. But the kids just laughed and started picking on him after that. Rudo learned that story from Recto, so he feels bad that repeating it got Rudo in trouble, because stories like those are usually just made up. But Recto does believe that objects can have souls. Rudo lights up after hearing this and asks if that means all the stuff in the room has a soul as well. Recto says anything can have a soul, even the gloves that Rudo is wearing, as long as he cherishes them. Rudo later wakes up and finds himself being dragged across the floor by Engine. He starts yelling, demanding to know why Engine chained him up. Engine reminds Rudo that he's still a total stranger, and there's no way he's bringing a stranger back to base without taking some precautions first. Rudo squirms around, telling Engine Engine to let him go because he needs to get back to the city as soon as possible. But Engine tells him that is impossible right now. The place Rudo calls the city is called the Sphere down here, and it moves around a lot in the sky, making it hard to keep track of. There's also the fact that Rudo can't fly, so he'd never be able to get back up there. There are other factors as well, but the point is, for now, Rudo is stuck down here, so he should just stay quiet and deal with it. However, Rudo refuses to give up because nothing's going to stop him from getting revenge on those pricks in the sphere. Earlier, Engine said Rudo was stuck for now, meaning there must be some way to get up there, and Rudo wants to know what that is. He asked Engine to tell him everything about this place and how to leave, saying he won't shut up until Engine tells him. Engine, sick of the constant yelling, says if Rudo is so desperate to know what kind of place the surface is, he'll get a first-hand lesson. Engine drags Rudo to an old service station with 2 trucks out front, drops him off, and wishes him luck before leaving him to fend for himself. Rudo then spots 5 men staring at him. They think his clothes are strange and speculate that he might be a spirit. To be sure, they ask where he came from. Rudo says he fell from the sphere, and the men remove their masks in shock. They've never seen a living spirit before. They still find it hard to believe he survived the fall, but judging by his face, they think he's telling the truth. Rudo dislikes strangers touching his face, so he pulls away. The men apologize, but say they don't see people like him often. The leader notices Rudo's chains and offers to change them, and Rudo thinks he's being kind, but instead, he ends up chained in the back of their truck. The men joke about how dumb it was for Rudo to trust them without knowing who they are. The leader tells them to be careful because they don't want to damage their latest product. Spirits fetch a high price here, mostly just their bodies, eyes, fingers, and even spirit clothes. But finding a living spirit is rare. The leader says people are willing to pay so much for spirits because everyone on the surface despises them. All they do is dump trash on the people here, poisoning the air and creating monsters. Once people find out Rudo is a spirit, it won't go well for him. He may be tortured, torn apart, or worse. The leader doesn't care either way, he just wants the money. Before selling him, he decides to get some payback by shoving trash into Rudo's mouth. He thinks Rudo has lived a sheltered life in the sphere, so this will break his spirit. But while doing so, Rudo bites down on his fingers, ripping the flesh off. The leader jumps back in pain, but Rudo chews and swallows it. Back in the slums, Rudo was forced to eat trash all the time, so nothing's changed. Even the discrimination is the same. He rips free from the chains, and now all he thinks about is murder. Engine, watching from a cliff, is impressed by Rudo's capabilities. Rudo recalls what Recto told him about cherishing objects, and as he grabs a chain, it begins to glow red. On the surface, there are special people like Engine who can give life to objects, drawing out their full power, and Rudo is one of them. The chain transforms, startling the scavengers. The leader reminds them that if they take the chain away, Rudo can't use his powers. They knock it from his hand, but Rudo grabs a tire instead and beats them all down. The leader is last, insulting him repeatedly, but before Rudo can kill him, Engine stops him. Rudo snaps out of it, and the tire crumbles to dust. Rudo doesn't know what happened, but suspects it's connected to his gloves. Engine apologizes for leaving him, but says he needed to see his abilities. Now that he knows Rudo is a giver, he offers him a deal. He'll tell him everything if Rudo joins him and the other cleaners. But after everything, Rudo refuses, saying, "Nope." Anyway, Engine kidnaps Rudo. It was pretty easy considering how badly Rudo was hurt, so he took him to a doctor to patch him up. While there, Engine tells one of his teammates that he has found a talented kid to join their team. Rudo yells that he never agreed to join Engine's team, but Engine tells him he doesn't really have a choice. He's definitely going to die out there without help. The doctor starts yelling at Rudo too, telling him it was beyond stupid to head into no man's land on his own. With all that toxic air he inhaled, the doctor is surprised Rudo is even alive and says he should be grateful Engine saved him. Just looking at Rudo's face annoys the doctor, so he tells him to pay up and get out. After that, Engine pays the doctor and the two leave together. Rudo is genuinely grateful that Engine is helping him so much. but he's serious about not being able to join Enjin's team. He has to get back to the sphere to get his revenge. He doesn't have time to sit around collecting trash or whatever it is Enjin's team does. Enjin tells Rudo he's free to go around asking for information on how to get back to the sphere. But there are two things he should know first. Everyone here hates spheroids just as much as the body sellers do. So if anyone finds out Rudo is one, he's done for. This isn't the kind of place where you can get information for free, so asking around won't do much good. Inside one of the trash cities, Enjin buys Rudo some real food while they sit at a table. Rudo loves the burger and is a little surprised since he always imagined the pit being nothing but trash. However, now that he's seen it, it looks like a regular city, just with trash everywhere. Enjin explains that trash often contains a mix of emotional power called anama. Sometimes anama gathers into a large mass, which gives rise to trash beasts like the ones Rudo fought. Trash beasts attack humans on sight, but tend to stick to dumping sites, so the city folk rarely deal with them, though there are occasional incidents. It's not easy to take out trash beasts. You have to destroy their cores, which can only be done using special equipment like Enjin's umbrella or Rudo's gloves. Ordinary objects can become powerful weapons if anama inhabits them, but only a few people, called givers, can draw out their full potential, and Rudo is one of them. Enjin says he's a cleaner who works for an organization of trash beast exterminators, and they need all the givers they can get. He wants Rudo to join him. Rudo asks if Enjin will really tell him how to get back to the sphere if he works with him. But Enjin admits he has no idea how to get there. He only lied earlier to get Rudo to listen. He says his boss is more up to date on current events and might know a way. Frustrated, Rudo realizes he now has to meet Enjin's boss, just to maybe have a shot at returning to the sphere. A few moments later, Enjin gets a call and has to take care of some business. Before leaving, he gives Rudo a bag of money and says he can do whatever he wants with it. Rudo is shocked by Enjin's generosity and asks if it's really okay to take it, but Enjin says it's fine, especially since it's the money he got from selling Rudo's spirit clothes. It's only now that Rudo realizes his clothes are missing, and he's furious that Enjin sold them without his permission. But in Enjin's defense, wearing spirit clothes around here would only draw unwanted attention, so he was actually doing Rudo a favor. He walks off before Rudo gets a chance to yell at him. While Rudo isn't paying attention, a cat jumps down from a signboard, snatches the money from the table, and runs away. Rudo isn't about to let himself get robbed by a cat, so he chases it into an alley. The cat is too fast for him to catch barehanded, so Rudo grabs a nearby stick to help. It works to pin the cat down, but he doesn't realize the stick belongs to someone, and that someone is not happy. The man accuses Rudo of robbing him. Rudo, confused, says he has no idea what he's talking about. The man, Zanka, tells him he's referring to the stick in Rudo's hand. Rudo can't imagine how an ordinary stick could be so important. Zanka snatches the stick back and explains it's no ordinary stick. It's a vital instrument, and stealing one has serious consequences. He activates it and warns Rudo that even if he is a prodigy, he has no right to touch another man's weapon. Rudo asks how Zanka knows about him, and Zanka explains he's one of the cleaners, and that Enjin already told him about Rudo, asking Zanka to teach him a few things. While Enjin has high hopes for Rudo, he still needs to learn basic lessons like not taking other people's belongings. Rudo insists he wasn't stealing. He just needed the stick to catch the cat that stole his money. But Zanka isn't interested in excuses. He insults Rudo by saying he must have had a terrible father to think stealing is okay. That crosses the line because insulting Regto enrages Rudo. Rudo recalls a lesson Regto taught him, that people can't come to an understanding when angry, and sometimes it's best to cool off and see things from the other person's perspective. He realizes that from Zanka's point of view, it must have looked like he was stealing the stick, and he can relate. He'd be furious if someone tried to take his gloves. So he apologizes. The apology works. Zanka deactivates his stick and says he's willing to let it go. He even apologizes for threatening Rudo, saying that as a teacher, he should have stayed calm. Rudo is surprised by how easily the situation was resolved. Zanka extends a hand to help him up and asks what his vital instrument is. Rudo says it's probably his gloves, though he can't activate them at will yet. Zanka begins explaining how vital instruments work, but Rudo is distracted by how different Zanka looks when smiling. He wonders if this is what Regto meant when he said, "You look better with a smile." Wanting to try it himself, Rudo attempts to smile, but it comes out worse than before. Zanka has no idea what he's looking at and thinks Rudo is mocking him. Rudo tries to explain that he's genuinely trying to smile, but his expression makes it hard to believe. On top of that, Zanka dislikes Rudo's attitude toward the cleaners' work, since they risk their lives daily to protect others. He assumes Rudo is doing this for some foolish reason. This enrages Rudo, who remembers Regto's final words about changing the world. He's furious that Zanka would call his goal stupid when it's meant to honor Regto's last wish. Zanka says he tried to keep an open mind, but he can't get along with Rudo, so he's done being nice. Rudo has also had enough, so he grabs something from the trash and prepares to fight. Zanka is shocked to see Rudo use something other than his gloves as a vital instrument, finally understanding what Engine meant when he called Rudo a prodigy. Still, he says raw talent means nothing without the skills to back it up. Just then, Rudo notices that Zanka isn't holding his stick anymore. When he looks up, he sees it flying straight toward him. He manages to dodge, but Zanka rushes in and starts applying heavy pressure. Rudo eventually finds an opening to counterattack, but only grazes Zanka's cheek. Zanka then slams Rudo into the ground and calls him a pathetic excuse for a giver until he notices something on his cheek. To his horror, after sniffing it, he realizes it's poop. Looking over at Rudo, he realizes the weapon Rudo grabbed from the trash is actually a filthy plunger. Rudo has no idea why Zanka is so freaked out, since he's never seen a plunger before, but he isn't about to stop fighting. Even as Zanka begs for a timeout, Rudo keeps chasing him, assuming the plunger must be a dangerous weapon. Proudly, Rudo leaps into the air and swings it at Zanka, splattering filth everywhere. A little while later, Engine returns to check on Rudo. When he finds him, Rudo is standing over an unconscious Zanka, both of them covered in poop. After hearing the whole story in the car, Engine bursts into hysterical laughter. He never imagined Rudo and Zanka's first meeting would end with poop flinging. For Zanka, a spoiled rich kid on the surface, this was extremely humiliating. Rudo is ashamed too, realizing too late what he'd been swinging around. Engine, however, thinks it was a good bonding moment and assures Rudo that Zanka is the best there is at controlling vital instruments, making him a great teacher. Zanka feels honored to receive such praise from his idol. While Zanka basks in the recognition, Rudo notices a pair of boots sticking out of the trunk. Engine says it's just Rio. When asked what she's doing there, she says she wanted to see the new guy in person. Rudo, inexperienced in talking to girls, freezes when Rio starts playing with his hair, saying she likes the color. Even Chao was never this touchy with him. Meanwhile, Engine announces they're heading straight to the cleaners' headquarters. Upon arrival, Rio says goodbye, and Engine takes Rudo to meet the receptionist, Semiyu. She already knows where Rudo came from and has an idea of his potential, but wants to see it for herself. Rudo doesn't understand, so Engine explains that Semiyu's glasses are her vital instrument, boosting her kinetic vision to read details about a person. When she activates them to examine Rudo, her view is suddenly blocked by a black haze when she tries to look deeper. Startled, she quickly composes herself. When Engine asks if something is wrong, she brushes it off, saying Rudo is in good physical shape, has a solid bond with his vital instrument, but lacks skill in using it. He'll need a lot of training to activate it on command. Still concerned by her earlier reaction, Engine presses her, but she changes the subject, pointing out there's poop on the back of Rudo's neck. Engine can't stop laughing, still amused by the earlier fight. Once Semiyu finishes her assessment, Engine says he'll take Rudo to meet the boss. On the way, he explains how the cleaners organization works, combatants, sentinels, and supporters, totaling around 100 members. Because of constant missions, it's rare for all of them to be in the building at once. He asks if Rudo is ready to meet some coworkers. Rudo questions the timing, but Engine insists it won't take long since most should be out. Unfortunately, nearly every cleaner is hanging out in the break room, so Engine decides introductions can wait. He leads Rudo to the boss's room, but warns him not to demand information outright. Information is valuable, and he'll need to offer to work for it. He also advises never to ask about the boss's vital instrument. The boss doesn't like discussing it, and no one else knows what it does anyway. They trust the boss completely, so they've never cared to find out. After hearing how much the boss is respected, Rudo wants to make a good first impression. So, he opens the door to introduce himself, but to his surprise, the office is empty. Just then, Semi walks up behind them and says she totally forgot to mention that the boss is out on some business, so he won't be around for a while. Engin had no idea, so he apologizes to Rudo and asks Semu if she knows when the boss will be back. But she's got no clue where the boss even went to begin with, so it looks like Rudo is just going to have to sit and wait until the boss gets back. Just then, Riao shows up and tells Rudo that if he's got nothing better to do, he's free to come watch her work if he wants, and it would be a great opportunity for the two of them to get to know each other better. Rudo agrees to go with her. Semu gives a breakdown on the mission Riao will be going on. One of the towns near a polluted zone is worried because trash beasts have been approaching its gate recently, and they don't want to take any chances, so they ask the cleaners to come help. It seems simple so far, but Rudo hasn't been following a single word Semu just said, so she asks Engin if he actually explained anything to Rudo or not. Engin admits that he may have skipped over a few important details, so Semu gives him a crash course. Basically, on the ground, there are two different types of land: the habitable areas known as safe zones, and the trash-filled wastelands known as polluted zones. While all polluted zones are dangerous, some are particularly deadly. These areas are called no man's land. The trash beasts there are so powerful and violent that any human who wanders in usually ends up dead. It's nothing short of a miracle that Engin found Rudo when he did, because Rudo definitely would have died if left on his own. Semu warns Rudo that whenever he's in a polluted zone, he needs to wear a gas mask because breathing toxic air for too long can make him seriously ill. A little while later, Rudo arrives at the job site with Riao and her team. Even though he can't officially become part of the cleaners until the boss approves him, she wants him to stay close and pay attention. Rudo looks beyond the city wall and sees an empty wasteland, which must be where the polluted lands start. He wonders how long he was breathing toxic air when he first got here. Now that he's seen the cities down here, he is amazed at how different they are from his expectations. Back when Rudo was in the sphere, he thought people dropped into the hole would die immediately, and he had no idea there were people living down here. For a moment, he wonders if the other spheres know about this, but even if they did, they would probably continue dumping trash here. Once Rudo catches up with Riao, he asks who the other guys are. She explains that they are cleaners on the mission, but without powers, so they mostly handle support. One supporter turns around and introduces himself, but when they shake hands, he accidentally squeezes too hard. Riao laughs and tells Rudo that the guy is known for his physical strength. He can crack trash beasts open with a single punch. Rudo is amazed that everyone here is on such a different level, so he plans to watch and learn as much as possible, even though this is supposed to be an easy job. Just then, trash beasts emerge from the polluted lands. Riao tells Rudo to stand back and watch. At first, there are only weak ones that can't damage the fence, but then larger ones arrive that could break through. Rudo panics, but Riao assures him it's still under control, and even says they might finish early so she can throw him a welcome party. Rudo asks how she could think of a party at a time like this, and Riao tells him that to survive on the ground, he needs to learn to keep a cool head in dangerous situations. Rudo agrees, but then a giant trash beast appears. Riao can't believe her eyes. This is the first time she's seen one like this. She takes out her vital instrument, planning to thin out the herd first. She jumps into the air, activates her scissors, and beheads several trash beasts in one move. Rudo is mesmerized by her skill, but the supporters remind him that even as an observer, he still needs to watch his surroundings to protect himself. One of the trash beasts manages to slip behind Rudo while he isn't looking and is about to ram into him. At the last second, a supporter steps in, stops it with one hand, crushes its skull, and throws it over to Ryu. She readies her scissors and splits it in half when it lands. She asks the supporters to keep them coming, so they get to work crushing trash beasts and tossing them toward Ryu. Trash beasts can't be truly killed without the use of a vital instrument, but the supporters can crush or disable them to make it easier for Riao to finish them off. Once most of the smaller ones are gone, Riao goes after the big one. While she's doing that, the supporters keep the remaining small trash beasts out of her way. However, one supporter is caught off guard when a trash beast suddenly springs back to life and is about to crush him. At the last second, Rudo steps in to protect him. After seeing how well everyone works together, Rudo realizes that if he wants to be part of the team, he needs to pull his weight and have their backs. As he says this, his powers react with a rod in his hand, turning it into a protective cage. Rudo has no idea what triggered his power this time, since it has only activated when he's angry, and he wasn't angry at anyone. The cage crumbles soon after, but it buys enough time for Riao to arrive and destroy the trash beast. They're all grateful to Rudo for stepping in, but the big one still remains. Riao tried cutting it in half earlier, but it somehow pieced itself back together. Annoyed, she decides to keep slicing it until it stops moving. Since it's a new type of beast, they don't know what it's capable of, so a few supporters head out to warn nearby cities while Riao engages it again. She stabs its face, then attacks the tendrils on top of its head. After cutting them all off, she spots a glowing area on the back of its head that seems important. The beast reacts violently, confirming her suspicion that it's the weak spot. She leaps into the air and slams her scissors into its head, piercing whatever was powering it and turning it to dust. When the supporters ask how she defeated it, Rudo explains that she pushed this thing out of its head, and it must have been its power source. She hopes she's wrong, though, because the object in her hand is a vital instrument. If trash beasts can fuse with vital instruments, they have a serious problem. Elsewhere, the man who tried to kidnap Rudo wakes up in a pile of trash, confused, since the last thing he remembers is getting beaten by a spirit kid. Just then, he notices a man sitting on a couch in front of him. The man tells him he wants to hear all about the spirit kid that beat him up. Later that night, Zanka gets up from bed and hears a lot of people talking in the cafeteria. He goes to check it out and is surprised to see everyone in the middle of a huge party. He finds Rudo and asks her what it's for. She tells him it's Rudo's big welcome party, but Zanka doesn't buy it since Rudo hasn't done anything to earn a party this big. He bets Rudo and the others just wanted an excuse to get drunk, and he's not wrong. Since it's meant to be Rudo's party, Zanka thinks it's weird he hasn't seen him yet. He looks around and eventually spots Rudo sitting with his head down at a table, looking sad. He asks Rudo what's wrong with him, but she's not sure. He's just been upset since they got back from the mission, so she's been giving him space. Speaking of the mission, Zanka asks how it went. He's heard rumors that she went up against a weird trash beast. Rudo says weird is an understatement. The beast's core wasn't made of anama. It was a vital instrument. She's hoping she's wrong because the thought of trash beasts with vital instruments gives her a headache, so she's decided not to think about it and just enjoy the party. While they're talking, Grizz pulls up a chair at Rudo's table to have a chat. He asks why Rudo is so down when he did good work yesterday. Rudo says he didn't actually do anything helpful. Grizz reminds him he saved Folo, the Gobble's kid, from getting trampled by the trash beast. But Rudo still feels like he didn't make much of a difference. Rudo and Grizz were the ones saving people, while he just rushed in without thinking and made things worse. It was the same back in the sphere. One insult and he'd fly off the rails in rage, and then Rudo would have to apologize for him. His job yesterday was to stay back and observe, but instead, he put himself in danger like a fool. Even so, Grizz thanks Rudo for saving Folo. Supporters are often looked down on as dead weight, and some cleaners treat them like they're worthless. But Rudo showed respect from the start. Folo, for example, wanted to become a cleaner and fight trash beasts. He started working on a treasured object, hoping to become a giver, but over time, realized that vital instrument or not, he still wanted to help people. So he became a supporter instead, because every job is important. Grizz then asks Rudo if he knows what he really wants aside from revenge. Rudo doesn't know how to answer. Grizz tells him it's fine if he can't answer right away. It's a big question, but he's sure Rudo will figure it out because he's still got a long life ahead. Grizz's speech really strikes a chord with Rudo, so he feels a lot better and decides to join the others at the party. Elsewhere, a scrap collector who was kidnapped isn't having such a great time. The man who took him, Jabber, has spent the last few hours torturing him for information about Rudo. The worst part is that the scrap collector has already told him everything he knows, which isn't much, considering he's only seen Rudo once. But Jabber keeps torturing him anyway, just for the fun of it. Now the poor man is a bloody mess, begging to be let go. Instead, Jabber decides to slice his face off to end his misery because he's bored. While he didn't get much useful information, Jabber did learn what Rudo looks like, and that he's both a spirit and a giver, which makes him a perfect addition to Jabber's collection. Later that day, back at Cleaner's HQ, Semia receives an interesting call at the front desk. She gathers the team to explain the details and apologizes for the sudden notice, but Zanka doesn't mind an early job. What he does mind is that she expects him to bring Rudo along. He points out that he's only meant to train Rudo once he becomes an official cleaner, and with the boss gone, that won't be anytime soon. Semia insists she can call in whoever she wants, and besides, Rudo is relevant to the mission. The job came from a merchant whose valuable merchandise, a living, breathing spirit, was snatched by a trash beast in a polluted zone. Everyone is shocked. Spirits like Rudo surviving the fall is rare enough, so the chances of two appearing so close together are almost impossible. That's why she figured Rudo would be interested. If he's lucky, the spirit might even know a way back to the sphere. Rudian tells Rudo there's no pressure, it's his choice. Rudo knows he still can't control his powers properly, so he might slow the team down, but this could be a good chance to learn. He decides to go. Zanka still isn't thrilled, so Simia tells him she was originally going to send Engine, but he recommended Zanka for the job instead. Hearing that his idol picked him gets Zanka fired up, so he agrees, and the others follow his lead. While walking, Rudo asks Grizz if he's sure about going without a weapon. Grizz says, basic trash beasts usually go down after a punch or two. Follow chimes in, saying Grizz is just acting tough. In reality, he's always worried, so he carries a lucky charm for safety. The group is then approached by a woman named Grim. Now that everyone's here, she asks if they can get going, as she still needs to show them where the trash beast went. Rudo figures she must be the client. He starts questioning her about the spirit, what they looked like, where she found them, and what condition they were in. Grim says she stumbled across the furry creature while traveling, but it was unconscious the whole time, so she never got to speak to it. She hopes they can find the spirit before it gets hurt. Rudo assumes she's only worried because she wants to sell the spirit's body parts, but Grim says she would never harm it for profit. Rudo still doesn't trust her, but finding the spirit takes priority. Still, Zanka doubts they'll find it alive, and ever since Grim arrived, he's had a bad feeling he can't explain. They reach an old abandoned building, and Grim says that's where the spirit was snatched. They prepare to fight, but instead of a trash beast, the place is empty except for a doll sitting in a chair. Suddenly, Grim shoves them all into the middle of the room, and moments later, the floor collapses beneath them, sending the group falling into the basement. They all manage to survive somehow, and Grizz yells at Grim, demanding to know what she thinks she's doing. She tells them she's just making it easier to get to the spirit, and by that, she means Rudo. Grim then melts into a pile of mud. Down in the tunnel, two shady figures emerge from the darkness holding purple lanterns. Zanka had his suspicions before coming here, and now he wishes he had trusted his gut. It's clear they've fallen into a raider trap. Rudo asks what he means by raiders, so Grizz explains they're basically bandits, but lately their activities have grown extreme, even experimenting on people. Normally they wouldn't be a big deal, but most of them are givers, making them a significant threat. There's no time to waste, so Grizz tells the other three supporters to look for an exit while he and follow protect Rudo. He warns everyone there may be more raiders nearby and asks Zanka to handle the two in front of them. Zanka says he's got it covered, so they should move. After a moment's hesitation, Rudo follows Grizz and follow to find a way out. Rudo says he could have stayed to fight alongside Zanka, but Grizz explains that raiders aren't just ordinary goons. It would be far too risky with Rudo there, making him feel like a burden again. Meanwhile, Zanka asks the raiders how they found Rudo so quickly. He figured it was only a matter of time before word got out about Rudo, and people came after him, but it's only been 2 days. He assumes they're after the money they'd get from selling him. Grim tells him she'd never sell Rudo, not when she could get valuable information by studying his brain. Zanka doesn't care why she wants Rudo, but he hates that she wasted his time with a fake request. Grim tells him he can take his frustration out on her puppet. Within seconds, Zanka is surrounded by mud figures, but he's not worried. They should be easy to destroy. He starts smashing them, but Grim has a trick up her sleeve. Before he realizes it, KZO emerges from one puppet and punches Zanka in the face. Grim's mud puppets may be weak, but with KZO hidden among them, Zanka never knows where the next hit will come from. To make matters worse, mud splatters everywhere each time he destroys a puppet, making it hard to move. Grim says she's enjoyed their fight, but needs to finish him before going after Rudo, since his abilities are troublesome. Zanka cuts her off, saying he's tired of her talking. He admits she had the upper hand at first, but watching her fight has revealed her tactics. She uses her shovel to control the mud. At first, he worried KZO might also have a special weapon, but it turns out all he can do is punch and kick. And the only reason he moves so well in the mud is because he's wearing snowshoes to distribute his weight. Finding this amusing, Zanka decides to end it. Grim, now frustrated, sends all her puppets at once. Before they can reach him, Zanka jams his stick into the ground and uses it like a tuning fork to sense vibrations, detecting even the smallest anomalies. It only takes seconds to locate the puppet with KZO inside. He charges, smashes KZO in the face, then strikes Grim, knocking them both out instantly. With Grim unconscious, her mud puppets disintegrate. Zanka is almost disappointed by how easy it was, until he hears Jabber's voice right behind him and instantly knows he's in deep trouble.